Hello everyone. On this video we will be looking at proper fractions, improper fractions, and mixed numbers. Okay, so if you looked at the previous video, you will see there that everything we discussed there were proper fractions. Okay, so far we have discussed proper fractions. Okay, so proper fractions are just when the numerator is smaller than the denominator. Okay, proper fractions are numbers less than 1 where the numerator is smaller than the denominator. Right? So for example, if you have 3/5, that's a proper fraction. If you have 1/2, that's a proper fraction. If you have 2/3, that's a proper fraction. If you have 3/10, that's a proper fraction, etc., etc., and so on. Okay, so whenever your numerator, the number up top, is smaller than your denominator, the number at the bottom, you have a proper fraction. Okay, now for an improper fraction, those are numbers where the value of it is greater than or equal to 1, and your numerator is greater than or equal to your denominator. That are greater than or equal to 1. Okay, so this happens when the numerator is greater than or equal to the denominator. All right. So let's say, for example, you have 7/3. That's an improper fraction. You have 14/5. That's an improper fraction. You have 8/1. That's an improper fraction. Or 29/2. That's an improper fraction. And etc., etc., and so on. Okay, those are all improper fractions. All right. So if you are still writing, feel free to press pause, but we're going to go ahead and move on to the next page. Where we look at rewriting improper fractions as mixed numbers. Okay. Now, a mixed number is just an improper fraction that's written as the sum of a whole number and a proper fraction. Okay, so let's take a quick look at this example here. And if you look at all three of these together, okay, so let's say you wanted to add all three of those sections together. Okay, so here you have 3 out of the 3 shaded, plus the 3 out of the 3 shaded, plus 1 out of the 3 shaded. Okay, so if you remember, anything divided by itself is just 1. So 3 divided by 3 is just 1. And 3 divided by 3 is 1. And this one is just 1/3. So all 3 of these together would be 2 and 1/3. All right, so you have your whole number added to your fraction. All right, so what we're going to do now is take a look at how to convert this mixed number to an improper fraction. All right, so if you're still writing this, by all means, feel free to press pause. This is just a quick introduction, but we're going to go ahead and go through our steps for converting that into an improper fraction. Okay, and I already have them written out, so my hand wouldn't be in the way. And these are the steps to convert improper fractions to mixed numbers. Okay, so your first step is you're going to rewrite your numerator over your denominator as a division problem using the division symbol. And then you're going to go ahead and divide it. Okay, so for example, if you have 8/5, you're just going to rewrite it as 8 divided by 5, where your quotient will be your value up top. And the way I usually remember it is, if you have 8 divided by 5, I just kind of talk it through. We have 8, and I use my symbol as divided by, to kind of remind me to do that, 5. Okay, and you'll see me do that a few times on the examples. Okay, now your second step, once you divide, your number up top, your quotient, that's going to be your whole number. Your remainder is going to be your new numerator. So when you rewrite it, your new numerator is going to be your whole number. I mean, your remainder. And your denominator is going to stay the same from where you started. All right. So if you are still writing, by all means, feel free to press pause. But we're going to go ahead and jump into a couple of examples. All right, so let's say, for example, we want to rewrite as a mixed number. Let me move this over a little. Okay, so for problem A, we have our 8/5. For problem B, we have our 3/2. For problem C, we have 41/12. And for problem D, we have 17/2. And let me erase that. 17/2. All right, so let's go ahead and go through these steps. So for problem A, remember your first step, to rewrite. So 8/5, you're just going to rewrite that. Remember, 8 divided by 5 is just 8 divided by 5. And then you go ahead and divide. 5 goes into 8 one time. 5 times 1 is 5. Then we go ahead and subtract. 8 minus 5 gives us 3. Okay, so we know here that's our quotient. That's our remainder, which becomes our new numerator. And our denominator stays the same. Okay, so this tells us that 8/5 is equal to your whole number. Remember, that's your quotient, 1 3/5. Okay, so 1 3/5. All right, so let's look at problem B. You have 3/2. Remember your first step, you're just going to rewrite it. So you have 3 divided by 2 is just going to be 3 divided by 2. And then you divide. 2 goes into 3 one time. 2 times 1 is 2. We go ahead and subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1. Okay, so that's your quotient. That's your remainder. Remember, that's your remainder becomes your new numerator, and your denominator stays the same. So that tells us that 3/2 is equal to 1 1/2. Okay, now for C, what I want you to do is I want you to press pause and work this one out on your own. Give that one a try. And do the same thing with D. Try D on your own. All right, so I'm assuming you've pressed pause and you've worked this one out. So let's go ahead and verify your answer. Okay, so 41 divided by 12, we're just going to rewrite that as 41 divided by 12. Okay, so 12 goes into 41. How many times? Well, let's see. 12 times 1 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24. 12 times 3 is 36. 12 times 4 is 48. 48 is bigger than 41. So we know we stop at 36. So 12 goes into 41 3 times. 4 times would be too many. 12 times 3 is 36. Okay. So if we subtract, 41 minus 36 is 5. Okay, so you have your quotient, which is your whole number, your remainder, which is your new numerator, and your denominator stays the same. So we know that 41 over 12 is equal to 3 5/12. All right, so let's go ahead and solve problem D. And again, go ahead and press pause and try this one on your own if you haven't already. Okay, so let's go ahead. So we have 17 divided by 2 is 17 divided by 2. All right, and we go ahead and divide. 2 goes into 17 8 times. 2 times 8 is 16. 17 minus 16 is just 1. So you have your quotient, your remainder, and your denominator. So this lets us know that 17 over 2 is equal to 8 and 1/2. All right. So if you are still writing, feel free to press pause. But now we're going to look at how to convert a mixed number into an improper fraction. So instead of going from improper fraction to mixed number, we're going to go from mixed number to improper fraction. All right, so rewriting mixed numbers as improper fractions. Okay, so your first step is you're going to multiply the denominator and your whole number. Okay, now your second step is you're going to add the numerator to the value from step 1. So after you multiply the denominator and the whole number, you're going to add whatever your numerator is. Okay, now that value from step 2, that will become your new numerator. And your denominator will stay the same. Okay, that doesn't change. All right, so if you are still writing this, of course, feel free to press pause, but we're going to go ahead and jump into a few examples. Okay, so for example, let's say if we want to rewrite these as improper fractions. Rewrite as improper fractions. Okay, so let's say for problem A, you have 7 and 1/2. Say for problem B, you have 1 and 13/16. So for problem C, you have 4 and 3/8. And for problem D, you have 5 and 1/2. All right, so let's go ahead and solve these. Okay, so for problem A, if you have 7 and 1/2, remember you're going to multiply your denominator and whole number. And then when you do that, you're then going to add your numerator. So this is just going to be 7 times 2 plus 1 all over your denominator, which is 2. Or 2 times 7 plus 1. Okay, so 2 times 7 is 14. So that gives us 14 plus 1 over 2, or just 15 over 2. So 7 and 1/2 is equivalent to 15 over 2. All right, so let's go ahead and do problem B. One and 13/16. Okay, so once again, we're going to multiply our denominator and whole number. Then we're going to get that and add the numerator. So you have 16 times 1 plus your numerator, which is 13, which would be all over the same denominator. So 16 times 1 is 16, plus 13, all over 16. So 16 plus 13 is 29 over 16. So 1 and 13/16 is equivalent to 29 over 16. All right. So let's go ahead and do problem C. Okay, so 4 3/8. Actually, I want you to go ahead and press pause and try problem C and D on your own, just to see if you got the hang of it. All right, so I'm assuming you've pressed pause and you've worked out problem C and D. So remember, for this one, you have to multiply your denominator and whole number. So you have 8 times 4. Then you're going to add your numerator, and your denominator stays the same. So 8 times 4 is 32, plus 3 divided by 8, which gives you 35 over 8. Okay, so we know that 4 3/8 is equal to 35 over 8. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve problem D. And again, if you haven't solved it already, go ahead and press pause and solve that one. So if you have 5 1/2, remember you're going to multiply your denominator and whole number. So that's 2 times 5 plus your numerator, which is 1. All over the denominator that stays the same. Okay, so 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1, all over 2. So 10 plus 1 is 11, so it gives you 11 over 2. So we know that 5 1/2 is equal to 11 over 2. All right, so that's how you would convert your mixed number into improper fractions and improper fractions into mixed numbers. All right, so hopefully this made sense, and I'll see you on the next video.